So UFC 300 is coming up and everybody is really, really excited for this card, and we're all waiting for Dana White's big announcement of what the main event is going to be, because it could be so many things. UFC 300 could be headlined by so many different people. It could be coming out of retirement fight for somebody, like GSP's been thrown out there, Khabib's been thrown out there. There's so much going on, but I did want to talk about quite a lot in this video. So you might just stick with me for a couple of minutes so I can get all of my points across. The first one I did want to get up and out of the way early is Ariel Helwani saying that the fans have been giving this card unrealistic expectations. I did want to counter that by saying we have got these expectations from Dana White. Dana White said what you can expect is the first prelim of the night for you to be going like, holy, this is the first prelim of the night. This is insane. This isn't even right. These two shouldn't be on the first prelim of the night. That's how good UFC 300 is going to be. Dana White said that, and that has given the fans these expectations. I made a UFC 300 card on what I would do if I had the option, in fact, more so what I'm expecting, and people were saying that's not enough. So my expectations, I feel like, are relatively realistic. You go over to UFC 300, you scroll all the way down, and you see the first prelim of the night is probably going to be Bonical taking it on Cody Brundage, and I look at that fight and I think, you know what? That could be the first prelim of UFC 299, and I wouldn't be surprised. So he's already let us down. He already let us down with that announcement. So anyway, the next one that we got, which was pretty big news, is Chael Sonnen saying, when talking 300, you aren't asking the right questions. Look, Bilal wasn't confirmed. Why? When you figure that out, you will figure out your surprise. Enjoy. Marks. I don't know what Marks means, but that's what he said. A lot of people thought it's going to be Khabib coming back. This guy thought it was Islam coming back. As I did state, UFC 300 is taking place during Ramadan. I never thought Khabib would come back, especially during Ramadan. And I don't think Islam would fight Leon Edwards during Ramadan either. So a lot of these Muslim fighters and fighters from that area of the world that are Muslim are very likely not to be on this card. And that includes a fighter that fought today as I record this video, because Magomed Ankalaev just defeated Johnny Walker. And you might think, why am I bringing up Magomed Ankalaev in this conversation to headline UFC 300? That's because I firmly believe that Alex Pereira was in the plans for UFC 300 headliner. I thought the UFC in an ideal world would want to do Alex Pereira taking on somebody like Israel Adesanya in the trilogy, Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill to unify the belt, or they were waiting on the result of this fight, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker, to do the UFC 300 headliner, and maybe they could do Ankalaev versus Pereira, but in my opinion, they're not going to do that, and the reasons are, firstly, the event is during Ramadan. Ankalaev, to my knowledge, is Muslim, so he will be partaking in Ramadan and just probably won't be 100% fight ready. Secondly, I don't think Magomed Ankalaev is a big enough name or an exciting enough fighter to headline UFC 300. Now, could Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev headline 301? Yes, absolutely. I think it could. Could it headline UFC 300, though? It would take a really strong undercard. It would take a better undercard than what we've been given so far to headline UFC 300. So, I'm almost ruling out Alex Pereira. I mean, we know Israel Adesanya is not the option, because Adesanya said he won't even be training until February because he's been injured. And then Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill was an option. And, you know, Jamal Hill's injury return time does take place at 300. So in an ideal world, Jamal Hill would be healthy enough to fight at 300. But the problem is, of course, he's recovering from his surgery. And recovery from surgery takes a long time. And when you do recover, you're not 100% for a very long time. And unfortunately, I can speak from experience with that, because I am a walking piece of metal. I've had so many surgeries from competing in many different sports. Rugby was a big one. That's how I messed up my jaw and why I have this massive scar on my neck and face. And then motocross was a big one as well. I used to race motocross and used to be pretty good at it. Smashed my shoulder doing that. So yeah, no, I understand how long it can take to recover from an injury. And of course, when he does return, he's not going to be 100%. He's going to need at least a few months to get back into fight shape, because I can't imagine he's training super hard right now. Pereira versus Hill, maybe off the card. So we've got no Izzy, no Hill, and no Ankalaev. If Johnny Walker was to beat, obviously, if Johnny Walker went out there and beat Magomed Ankalaev, I think they could have done it. I think they could have gone out there and done Alex Pereira versus Johnny Walker as the headliner of UFC 300. and then had Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan, and also had Alejandro Pantoja versus, I guess at this point it's got to be Moreno, but I was thinking versus Karp or something like that. So yeah, I think 300, I think a lot of things have fallen apart. You know, a lot of things have not fallen into place for this card to be as good as they wanted. Now, I'm not inferring that the UFC's whole plan was to put Pantoja on the card, but I think having Pantoja on the card would have just added another title fight. You know what I mean? We know Sean O'Malley's fighting at 299, Volk's 298, or is it 297? Oh, I don't even know. And then I think it's 298. And then you've got Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland at 297. Do you really want Sean Strickland headlining UFC 300? I don't think the UFC will. Now, it could be Dricus du Plessis, and then what do you do? Dricus du Plessis versus Jared Cannonier? That's not the UFC 300 headliner. So I feel like it's going to come down to what Chael Sonnen has been tweeting at. When you figure it out, you will find out your surprise. What's our surprise? Is it GSP coming back? I'm not ready to buy into that. I'm going to be honest. Now, GSP has been training though, so there is a little bit of evidence that could support that theory, because we know GSP's been training to make a big comeback for grappling. He's just going to be competing in grappling events. Now, there was the rumored fight GSP versus Nick Diaz in MMA for UFC 300. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know, man. I feel like there's so many questions that just haven't been answered. I feel like there's a lot of theories that have fallen through, like Khabib coming back. That ain't happening, to be honest. Well, it could happen, obviously, but it's not happening during Ramadan. Islam Makhachev's not going to fight Leon Edwards during Ramadan. In fact, apparently he's injured, is the word on the street. And then it's Ankalaev versus Bahia. You can't do that. If you go to the rankings, you go to the champions, there's not a lot of option left, you know what I mean? It's crazy, because I go through here, Bahia versus Rakic is fighting on the card. Bahia versus Blachowicz again. Krylov, are they moving him up the rankings so they could do Krylov versus Bahia? I mean, I would buy it. I mean, I love Nikita Krylov, but I feel like casual fans don't know who Nikita Krylov is, so they're not going to do it. And maybe Krylov is Muslim as well. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, there's a lot to kind of question here. Like, what is going on with UFC 300? Like, what is it? What is it, Dana? Like, not Dana. What is it, Chael? Like, you know, I'm trying to think of former champions that could make a comeback and fight at 170. I'm including 155 champions. Khabib's really the only logical answer, but he ain't coming back. Who's headlining UFC 300? If it's Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, it ain't good enough. It ain't good enough. That's all I'll say. Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad is not the UFC 300 headliner. It can't be. It's not a big enough fight. I love Leon Edwards. It's not big enough. It's just not big enough. And it's that simple. Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. They could do it. Is it ideal though? No, not really. Like, at all. But I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who could be the headliner of UFC 300? I feel like a lot of things are falling apart that, you know, people are thinking of. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video.